Welcome back to Live's the Stage with me, Frida Liu on Gen TV. I'm going to call this three-parter Sustainability at Heart. Why? When we think of sustainability, we think of things like climate action and environment. However, sustainable development an activist and philanthropist to help worthy causes and assist others. She's also known as a digital conversationalist, and we'll find out what she means by that later. My next guest is proudly made in Singapore. Dr. Jerome Joseph is the man to go for branding. Jerome's energy and agility saw him adjust swiftly to a digital delivery format when the pandemic hit the speaker's world. He also helped during the pandemic supporting people and companies with their COVID branding transitions. He's on a mission to help individuals uplift their personal branding and overcome the naysayers. And out next, we have Paul Dunn. In the race to save lives, many are losing their livelihood. 4 times TEDx speaker, social entrepreneur who established B1G1, not Biggie. Paul inspires his audience to join the quest for a better tomorrow by making impact today for the benefit of all of us. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I want to get your reaction, right? What was your immediate reaction when you first heard of the pandemic and it finally hit our shores? I'm going to get Andrea's perspective first. So what were you thinking?
For me, I was just stunned. I was so stunned by. So I'm sitting in Thailand, the first country outside of China to get the infection, right? And the thing I always do is I just get lost in information. So I need to know what's going on, right? So I'm reading everything, I'm watching everything, I was just stunned, and I think it lasted for about a month, and then I sort of came back out, and it was like, okay, so this is big. Let me share information. I couldn't calm people down, but I could see that we're in a 2-year cycle and it's not going to be an easy path. So I knew that I had a role of sharing information to help people understand so that they could prepare themselves. So that was kind of my reaction, but it was definitely stunned.
Okay, I remember when it hit Malaysia. I mean, when they all hit us at the same time, and I was just thinking, like, in a state of limbo, right? Just sort of like, frozen. What do you do with this now? What does it mean for everybody? Will I still have my job? That sort of thing, right? And what about you, Dr. Jerome? What was your reaction?
I went through my own stages of grief. I mean, it's so like I'm going to call it the stages of COVID acceptance, right? So the first was really denial. I was in complete denial. I mean, we went through SARS. SARS wasn't that bad. And then we got COVID. So I was in denial. I thought it was going to go away, but it didn't. And from that, from denial, I went into this whole depression, this anger, like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And of course, moving on to acceptance. And so this is what happened to me. I mean, really, it was just going through the stages. Wow.
Right. And I think we all thought, okay, it won't last that long, a couple of months and things will be back to normal. I had my holidays planned in May of that year. It should be calm by then. Yeah, right. What about you, Paul?
Well, for me, some people say I'm the supreme optimist, and so I'm going, oh yeah, well, it's going to be like flu and stuff. And I remember I was actually in Melbourne, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, this is really pretty big. And I was lucky enough to get the last flight out so that I could actually get back to home in Singapore. And then, as Andrea said, get to start to reflect on what was happening. And, there was lots of talk at that time about, we're going to be in the new normal and how do we, reset and all that kind of stuff going on. And for me, it was, and for the people that I'm very privileged to serve, it was an opportunity to literally do that, to reflect and not say, oh, how do we get back on track? Because a lot of people were thinking, hang on a second, maybe the track that I was on was not exactly the right track.
Right.
And so it accelerated, I think, a lot of things that have been going on anyway.
Right.
So a fascinating experience, and continues to be, of course.
Right, continues to be. I want to find a little bit about, you guys, what you guys do and what you guys have been doing. Andrea, you said you're a digital conversationalist, right? So tell me what that is and how do you help organizations with the work that you do?
So, well, the work that I do pretty much has been put on the back burner ever since this pandemic began. But I work with large B2B companies. That's my focus. And I work with all of their employee base, starting at the executive level. And I teach them how to be social leaders. So using their voice on social media with deep integrity, a mindset of service, and, and it's all about sharing information, sharing knowledge, inspiring people in whatever way makes sense to everybody. So that's my work. And it's kind of disappeared, which is interesting.
Right.
Because at a time when it should have grown, it's kind of disappeared. But I'm okay with that because I've needed to sort of focus on other things. But that's basically what the Digital Conversationalist is all about. It's working with businesses to help people own their voice, but not in a not in a messy way, in a really meaningful way. I believe that I'm trying to recruit everybody onto social media to be a voice for the future of humanity. So I'm not always going to get paid for that, and I'm okay with that.
And you're right. I think especially right now when you talk about communicating with integrity, this is the only way of communicating right now online, right, with social media. And I guess the people that you have spoken to before are leveraging on the fact that they've learned from you. I know that you're in Phuket at the moment, and you started this charity called One Phuket. And why were you moved to start this? And I guess this was pandemic or pre-pandemic?
Actually, January 2021, yeah. So for the first sort of 9 months of the pandemic, I was watching a lot of people doing amazing work. Like there's so many amazing charities and businesses, and they're out there doing everything they can. And my husband and I were donating money, donating our time, sharing on social media, so raising awareness. But every single person, I could see this desperation in their eyes. It was like nothing anyone did was enough. And it was really heartbreaking to me, and I could feel the energy starting to go, because it's very hard doing charity. So One Phuket isn't a charity, it's a community. Right. It's basically but what I did, the only thing I did, and this is honest, and I brought every single person that I knew that was doing good work, I brought them all together. We all went out for lunch, and I said, how are you guys doing? Are we doing enough? Can we do more? What can we do to support you? So basically what One Phuket is, the entire island coming together, all nationalities. There's a lot of very wealthy people here. So we're like, come on, guys, you can donate, you can help. And then, all the way through to the Burmese migrant workers living in tin sheds, right? Right. So, and it's all about come together, let's get through together. 90% of the economy in Phuket is tourism, and there's no tourists. Yep. Right. And people are literally starving, crime's going up, like we're seeing all around the world. And I'm just like, well, that's not okay. That's not okay by me. Let's come together and let's take care of each other. And, it's 150 baht for a bag of food that will last a family of 4 for a week. Wow. And that's $4 or $5, right? Right. If we can't take care of each other, then I don't know, what are we here for? So I just think we've got to change the world. We've got to stop building an economy on the backs of other people's suffering. We can do this. It's not hard. And everyone needs to come on board. And, charity is a hard thing to do in Asia. It's not necessarily part of the culture in a lot of parts of the region. But I think it's an opportunity for all of us to say, this is an example for us to do things differently and to show the world how we should be moving forward as a global society. Because, when we look at the climate crisis, if we don't come together, we're not going to make it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
to me, One Phuket is all about that. It's just an example to the world. This is what we need to do. Take care of each other.
And and it's great because one person at a time, right? One community at a time. Of course, we want to change the world, but it just starts with one person and rallying a few others, and that's how we pay it forward in that sense. So kudos to you for the work that you're doing out there. Jerome, Dr. Jerome, you've also helped during the pandemic supporting people and companies with their COVID branding transitions, right? Why do you think this is important, and how have you been helping?
So it's extremely crucial. I mean, I think, I still remember, right, when this happened, I was in shock, as I was telling you earlier. I was going through my own stages of COVID grief. But I started to realize, I mean, we have a lot of clients that we help in Singapore and outside Singapore. And I was getting calls on a weekly basis. I had CEOs, senior leaders, literally crying on the phone because just like that, their business was gone. Just like that. And I had to pull myself together because, that's what I do for a living. I go in and I work with organizations, I consult with them, or I train them to get the brand to the next level. And now the conversations that I was having have had to evolve, had to change, because these were businesses that really, really needed help. And so as part of what we did in my own company, we sat down and we said, how can we help these brands? How can we help them during this period? And there were a few things that we did. And I'm going to summarize it very quickly because there was a lot of depth in what we did. But one of the first things that we said was, look, you have to find a way to adapt or evolve. Adapt from a very passive perspective, meaning making small changes that will help you cope during this short-term period. Or you may need to evolve your business and making more dramatic changes that will help you change your entire business model. So these were the pieces of advice that we literally gave our clients, right? So number one, we said, start looking at your business and start looking at the changing needs of your audiences in your markets, because COVID has impacted the way we work, the way we live. How can you serve them? A good example, for example, was a food and beverage company. They were a restaurant. And we said, okay, firstly, if you have a passive change, let's get you online, right? So let's bring your offering, let's brand it, let's bring it online. But that's just a passive change. A longer term change is about how you can evolve your business. And so what they did was we helped them create a secret sauce, their secret sauce, right? We packaged it, we branded it, because in the new mon, what was happening? More people were at home, more people were working at home, they were cooking at home. As such, there was now a need for all these ingredients, right, for their food. It's a secret sauce. So that was a longer, more active change that we looked at. So the business model evolved. We looked at the business model, either it's a small tweaks or a longer tweaks. We looked at new streams of revenue for this business. We also told the business to look at from a very agile perspective. You got to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, because no one knew what was happening. The world was changing at such a rapid pace. I had no idea what's going to happen 3 months from now. I mean, I'll give you a simple example. My brother owns a bar. If you look at channel News Asia, yesterday at 6 p.m., his bar was told to close down at 6 p.m. with customers in the bar. He called me crying, right? Because it's like, it's his business. He's put his money into it. And his bar, because something happened. There was this, a rise of infections in COVID in Singapore. So the ability to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C is absolutely crucial. And the final thing that we did was when we went into organizations, we said, you have to start thinking from your brand from inside your organization. So looking at culture, looking at how culture needs to change and how culture needs to evolve with what's happening. Because the brand is only as successful outside as it is inside. So those were the things that we did.
Right. Because my next question was like, what did you do? But I think this is right. It goes beyond branding, right? You have to look at your business operationally, and very interesting. Not plan B, not enough. You need plan C, right?
Yes,
and then I guess once you've got that sorted, then you can build the brand on top of what you've changed as well. I guess were people receptive? Or they know that they have to be receptive now because it's do or die.
It is do or die. And in fact, I had very tough conversations, right? there are a lot of people that were a little bit more resistant to change. And I said, look, it's a do or die thing. Do you want to close down your business? If you do, then don't do anything. Then your business will go. Or take a nice vacation, which is what some businesses did. They close shop and they says, look, I'm not going to work for 1 year and I'm going to open when everything is better. But I would say the majority of businesses that I work with said we need to change. And they were willing to listen and they were willing to take action immediately. And and this is crucial. It is crucial for survival in this time.
Right. Very interesting as for those who have closed as well, right? I mean, the luxury of closing, but I can understand keeping it open would just mean operational costs, right? Which would be just, you're going to be running at a loss anyway. So, and people just have to make the right decisions for themselves.
I mean, a good example was a travel agency that I work with, right? They're a travel agency. I mean, they're inbound travel to Singapore. That's it. So what we spoke about all the things that I just shared with you. And essentially they decided, look, firstly, they have a lot of money, all right? So they're a well-off company. They said, you know what? I'm going to go on a vacation. I'm going to spend time with my family. Let's close shop for 1 year. Let's see what's going to happen.
Right. Okay. Oh, thanks for that. Paul, now, how did you come up with this novel idea behind B1G1?
Well, that's, I think all of life is about choices and moments, isn't it? And before I get into that idea, could I just say, there's already been some gold, just in terms of the phrasing that Andrea and Jerome are using. For example, when you heard Andrea get on social media, what she was talking about was not the rah, 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 let's get on social media. What she actually said was with a deep sense of service. That's exactly what she said. And so one of the things, just before I get to that idea of B1G1, because I think it's central anyway, is that, remember I said that this is accelerated where we were. And so I think what we're now understanding is that we seriously are all connected. I mean, you can't ignore that anymore. And so there's this lovely shift that I'm seeing from me to we. I think the thing that, for example, Andrea was talking about in Phuket is a perfect example of not about me, but it's about we. The other thing I think that's really, really interesting is if we think of people other than ourselves just for a moment, right? The people that we are privileged to serve, then what's going on for them? And I think there are two key things that are going on right there. One is belonging, or another way of saying that is connection. And so I think that one of the things we all need to do, and Jerome was talking about that, was just double down on the connection. And that's not necessarily the connection to the customer. That's connection to ourselves, which comes back to what Andrea was saying. And then, connection to our team. Seriously, I mean, how can you be connected to the customer if you're not connected to the team? You can't.
Right.
And so this whole thing about connection and belonging is really, really important. And then that comes back, I think, to something goes way, way back. Jerome and Andrew, you remember this when Stephen Covey was talking about having a North Star, which is essentially saying having something bigger than yourself, right? Because it's no longer about yourself. It's about we, not me. And so when the B1G1 idea came up, it was this brilliantly simple idea where Masami, the founder of B1G1, said to me, she said, I've had this idea and I was mentoring her, and she said, can I ask you a question instead of the other way around? And I said, sure. And so she said, well, it's not so much a question, but just to ponder something. And this was in 2007. Right. And she said, let me phrase it as a what if. And she said, what if every time business was done, something great happened in our world? Right. And I remember at the time, I was regarded as an Aussie bloke, Andrea. You would understand exactly what that means. And I said, oh, yeah, that'd be good, And she was smart enough to say, I don't think you get it yet. And I said, well, explain it to me. And she said, well, in my head, I've given it a name. I call it buy one, give one. She's saying that. And I said, well, how would that work? What is that? And she said, well, imagine you go, she actually used the phrase Harvey Norman, but we probably shouldn't say. She said, imagine you go to an electronics store and you buy a TV and a plasma TV. And I said, whoa, hang on a second, Masami. If I go, what do you call it? Buy one, give one? if I go and buy a TV, they're not going to give me another one. That's that would work, you know. And she said, oh no, she said, you really don't understand. And I said, well, help me. And she said, well, let's look at why you go and do that, right? You go and buy that TV because you need better vision, or you think you want better vision, or bigger vision. So how would it be if when you did that, someone who could not see got the gift of sight?
Right. Wow.
Oh my God. And I was surrounded, as I am right now, by books. And she said, oh, imagine, you know, when every time someone writes a book or sells a book, imagine if a tree got planted. And I also had a cup of coffee, which sadly I don't have at my desk right now. But if I did, I'd show you the cup of coffee. And she said, or imagine when someone buys a cup of coffee, imagine if a child gets access to life-saving water. Just because you did that.
Right.
At that point, I said, can I be your mentor for the rest of your life?
so
and that was really the game-changing thing for me. So now what I do is to help business owners around the world create more impacts in their business and on the world than they have ever imagined. And good news is we crossed 246 million. So that's quite close to $250 million, if you can imagine that, impacts just yesterday. So it's a simple idea that seems to be working.
Right. Can you share some of the success stories?
Oh, well,
just two or three.
Let me give you a simple example, right? Because you talked about, you know, it's all about sustainability at heart. So the question that comes from that is, how can we move from this whole thing which said sort of like when I support charity, for example, that what I do is, well, first of all, I'll do it when I'm successful. Well, hang on a second. What is it you don't understand about the journey? It's actually now. And how can we do it now? Well, as a very simple, for example, I and many other B1G1 members have a simple little thing that's set up that happens automatically, which says every time we connect on Zoom, every time happens automatically, 11 kids get access to game-changing education. It's automatic. It's automatic. I don't need to be concerned with it. And when people hear that, they go, oh my God, how do you do that? Well, it's not easy to do, right, on the back of it. But the great news is that so many people now are finding that it does bring those things that we were talking about. It does bring that connection, that sense of belonging, that sense of having something greater than ourselves, which is so important. It always has been important. But as I said before, I think the pandemic has kind of made us realize that, you know, there's that need to do that. And I think the other thing too, and so glad that you were talking about it, Jerome, in a way, is that in this age of uncertainty, think about that for a minute. In this age of uncertainty, what do people need? Answer, certainty, right? And so they need us to be standing, those of us who have this privileged position, they need us to be standing for that and for being certain about some of the things, admittedly with plan A, plan B, plan C, but to understand that we're going to be here. And I think that's why this is such, it's not just an important moment for now, talking about moments and choices. It's an important moment for all of us. And when you get back to, you know, the Sustainable Development Goals, those 17 things that we have to hit, the global goals by 2030. I heard the guy and a friend of ours actually, who's the godfather, they say, of the goals. That's Paul Polman. And he just says it very bluntly. He says, look, we have to do this by 2030. Otherwise, we're history. It's very blunt. Right? So, yeah. And I think others like David Attenborough talk about it very positively and give us like all of the things that can happen when nature takes care of itself. And then they say, you know, just imagine that. So just imagine all of those things being something that we're a part of and leading, so that we can look back on these times and say, oh my goodness, that was just one of the most important times in our world to understand that we really are all connected.
Right. It's so interesting what you said, you know, people of privilege. And you know, when you look at, you don't have to be rich to be of privilege. I mean, the fact that, like I said, that I can afford food, I am privileged,
Yeah.
right? And I can make an impact. I can make the change, right? All of us have this ability, and of course, Sir Attenborough has been talking about this for 90 years, or as old as he is.
93, yeah.
93. He's been talking about
He's the only guy I know
forever.
that's older than me, actually, which is funny.
You know what's also interesting? I think I heard where he said, when he said this is the last straw, he literally meant this is the last straw. And okay, a little bit, Paul, your ambition is to inspire your audience to move from self-centeredness to collective thinking, to shift focus from getting or creating value to living your values, right? Easier said than done, right? Is this something that is more receptive to people and organizations now because of the pandemic?
Oh, I think so. It's like, both Andrea and Jerome mentioned it. I mean, I think that you would, all of us would know that there are now more companies, more entrepreneurial companies being established than ever before. Now, sure, that's because some people have lost their jobs and all of that kind of stuff. But even before that, we were seeing this incredible rise in new companies being created. Why was that? Because we were paying people well, we really were. Every one of us was, and then, but we saw it. You saw it, Jerome, Andrea. I'm sure you saw it, where people would go home without that deep sense of meaning that Andrea was talking about, and they would put their head on the pillow, and they would, before they eventually went to sleep, they would ask themselves, "Is that all there is? Is that all there is?" And they would realize that in corporate land, the traditional sort of corporate land, maybe that is all there is, but there is more. There is more. And that's why we're seeing so many people now embracing the goals, really understanding that we do have to come together in really, really interesting ways. And so this is, again, without wishing to minimize all of the terrible things that have happened, this is a period that we're going to look back on. As we look back, funnily enough, we look back on all those bad things, eventually we go, you know what? That was massive in terms of where we are now. And I think that's
something, Paul,
here.
if I could
sure.
jump in as well, because I agree what Paul is saying. I mean, a lot of my workshops, so when I talk about branding, it's not just external branding, but also branding from within an organization.
Exactly.
And it just reminded me, and it just triggered this workshop that I had last month with an organization. And we sat down, and in the workshop, we talked about belief. How has our belief changed because of COVID from a business standpoint? From how we serve our customers, as Andrea said, the service mindset. How do we serve each other in an organization? What can we learn from what COVID has taught us? And how does it shape our identity as a brand, as employees, as a culture for the future?
Yeah.
And that's how it's evolved for me in terms of talking to organizations. And this is a crucial conversation for me. It is crucial because this has, it's like this boom, this voltage has gone through all these businesses.
Yeah, and interesting enough, it's a conversation that I think also needs, and I know we all know this, right? But it's important saying it, is that belief then needs to turn into action. That's why, Andrea, the stuff that you're doing there in Phuket is so cool. Getting all of those people to come together so that collectively they can take action and lead the way forward. I think it's an extraordinary initiative.
It's the only way, right? So people miss the message when you feel compassion towards somebody or something or a community. Compassion requires action.
Yeah.
Right. So empathy, it doesn't require action, but compassion requires action. And we all need to be examples. And it's really interesting listening to what you guys are talking about. We cannot continue to grow the way we grew before the pandemic. Right?
Say that again.
Right. Yeah.
We cannot continue. We cannot continue. This quarter by quarter. We're making more money this quarter than we made last quarter. We cannot continue to do that. Earth will go on. Earth will get hot, get cold, get hot, get cold. New beings will exist, all that sort of stuff, right? humans, we're living in a way where the planet cannot where the planet cannot sustain our existence, right? I look into my children's eyes, I hear their dreams, and I keep saying to them, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that's possible. But I know that right now, their dreams are not possible. Young people are telling me about their ambitions to have children. I'm like, why the hell would you bring children into the world? Jerome, you've got a baby girl, right? Why the hell would you bring children into the world now, knowing what we know, right? We've messed it up, and we have an opportunity. And I look at the world right now, and this big desperation in me right now. America and Europe, they're getting back to it. We can't get back to it. We need the world said, yeah, go and deal with this. Go and deal with this pandemic, because you guys need a wake up call. We have to show that we've learned, because it's going to keep. I mean, those of us in Asia, it's rolling around. It's getting worse, right?
Yeah.
Remember that lovely song. It was actually written for Muhammad Ali.
Right.
And the song goes like this. I'm not going to sing the song, you'll be pleased, but you'll know the beginning of the song. Right? I believe that children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Yeah.
Give them a sense of pride. All that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And that is so true. I look at my kids and the same thing. But I think the really good news on that, Andrea, is that when I'm in large audiences, even on Zoom now, I used to ask, I still do, well, how many of us actually, I'll put up a picture, of the global goals, and I'll say, how many of us, is that the first time? Amazingly, just pre-pandemic, I was in the US with 5,300 accountants in the audience. You can imagine how exciting that was, but it really was. And I asked the question, I said, so how many of us, is it the first time you've seen this? Let me reframe it. Only 4%.
Right. Yep.
Knew what the heck we were talking about. Yeah. Only 4%. But what's interesting is if you get online with kids, an amazing situation happened last week. Actually, I won't go into the whole detail of it. But here's this group of kids and say, "Oh, we know that. We're learning that at school." So children are the future,
right?
And the kids actually get it, right? I'm sure they do better than we adults do. But obviously, we have to live that life and inspire them with all the messages. And Andrea, you would know that lovely phrase that Steve Jobs hit, which was, the storyteller is the most powerful person in the world, because the storyteller sets the vision and the values and the agenda for a generation yet to come.
Right.
And all of us have that kind of thing on our shoulders right now. Yeah.
The only problem that I see, we don't have time for the children to grow up to create.
Well, that's true.
Right. Yeah. So
we need to do it for them.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah. And so that 4% that you were saying, Paul. I hope it's higher now.
It is.
And I do feel that global awareness is rising.
Yes.
But the problem with global awareness rising is we need to give people a period to go through their eco-anxiety, because when you actually start to pay attention, you go through a period of depression, because it's so, like, when you actually come to terms with what we're facing, it's not good, right? But if you can face it, go through your depression, come out the other side, and I'm here for anyone that goes through the eco-anxiety and needs help, because when you come out the other side, that's when we get into action, and that's where we all need to get as quickly as possible. What can we do?
And that's one of the reasons why that whole connected thing is so important, right? This is a together process. Right?
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
It's not I'm me, let me go for it. It's a together process.
And then you've got organisations like B1G1, amazing organisation, so proud to be part of it. Seriously, they make it so easy to do good in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And the scary thing is, right, you alluding to it, Andrea, as well, is that, people have short memories, right, of what has happened. And you see this happening again. So I it's a conversation all on its own, but I just want to ask as well, right, serendipity has been described as finding good without looking for it, right? And to each and every one of you, right, I'm going to ask you individually, how has the last 2 years been serendipitous practice for you? Jerome, how has it been,
So I may have
serendipitous for
a
you?
slightly different perspective from
Right.
Andrea, right? So, my favorite movie is Star Wars, right? And it's Star Wars A New Hope.
Okay.
And so I look at all this and it's a new hope for me. I believe people have learned a lot of powerful lessons from COVID. And I'm very hopeful.
Mm.
I'm an optimist. I'm very hopeful, and I know the world will change and will get better. That's my belief. But to answer your question, March 2020, when COVID hit us, I was booked to travel and run programs and workshops in 20 countries. I was booked probably about 70 days, traveling out of Singapore to run programs. In March 2020, everything got canceled. Everything. So just like that, my speaking business, my consulting business, okay, but my speaking business, I lost everything. Around that time, my daughter was born. Now, this past 2 years has been absolutely amazing for me because of one simple reason: spending time with that beautiful.
Right.
See,
We got it.
And it would have happened if if things were normal, right? Because you would have seen her.
Exactly. I would have been on the plane. I would have been a plane. I would have been traveling, and waking up every day and looking at her, hugging her, holding her.
Right.
I am blessed. I am blessed because that's what counts, and that for me. What this whole COVID has told me is the value of family, the value of relationships,
right?
The value of my daughter. So this has been wow. I mean, I moved emotionally on a daily basis, just thinking how grateful I am to have that precious little thing in my life.
And as a result, we get more connected to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a direct result of that. Yeah. Wonderful story.
Right. And is that the case? Like if I were to ask you the same question, Paul?
Oh, it's so funny. When I used to come back, when you get off the plane, right, because you've been speaking and then you get on the plane and then you get off the plane and you come home and it's like, I'm going to walk through the door and everyone's going to say, oh, it's so lovely to see you, right? That's what you think. My kids did it this way. When are you leaving next? so now we've moved from when are you leaving next to it's really great that you're here and
right.
And I get we're doing things with the kids I'm doing things with the kids that would now not have been possible, and interesting enough through sessions like this. I mean, just go figure. If we had not have had COVID, we would not be doing this. We wouldn't. Okay, and there's so many other things that we would not have been doing, which allows us, yesterday, for example, on the B1G1 thing, we were zoomed in to, as you know, Andrea, to a place in Hanoi, which is where our original conference was supposed to be. And we were talking with these kids in an organization called Blue Dragon, which basically takes trafficked kids off the streets and gives them a place to call home until they can go back home, if you know what I mean. It's just amazing. And there were these kids and teaching us cooking, how to make original Vietnamese spring rolls kind of thing. But what was so interesting in all of that was that the B1G1 members who came, every single one of them brought their kids to that, right? So as it was, literally. So, and then we got these lovely messages back, which said things like this: oh my God, that was amazing. And have a listen to this, because our family so needed that. Right. So, and that, right within there is a blessing from this time. Having said that, I absolutely get what Andrea is saying. And really it means that we have that responsibility at a very, very deep level, the kind of level that you were talking about earlier, Andrea, and the one that Jerome was moved by just a minute ago.
Right.
to really understand that whilst it is about we, it starts with us, right?
And if I could just
Doing things
jump
that
in,
we
let's
perhaps
kind
had
of
never
say
even
something very
thought of
quickly.
doing before. Yeah.
Sorry, Jerome?
There is a song, right, by Leonard Cohen. It's called Anthem, and I love the song. If you listen to the lyrics, there's a line from the song, right? It says, "Through the cracks, the light comes in."
Yes. Yes.
Through the cracks, the light comes in. And the song just appeared in my head. And I'm thinking, I mean, COVID has cracked a lot of things, but it's where the light comes in and where there's hope. And that's my belief.
Right.
Yeah, and where there are cracks, right, where there are cracks in the concrete, remember the wall moving and all that kind of stuff, where there are cracks, that's where the new sproutings come.
Right. So the same question to Andrea about serendipity, and maybe to just also like your word of advice for those who can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Speaking of cracks and light,
don't miss this opportunity. Don't miss this opportunity to reflect, to think, to rebuild a life that's meaningful to you. Like Jerome's talking about his beautiful baby girl, right? And I know Jerome would have gotten on that plane if the pandemic didn't hit, and I know what he would have missed. So my husband and I chose, right from the word go when our boys were born. We built a life that's probably more alternative to most, right from the word go, because you've only got one chance with your kids, and I always said the first three years of their life are the most important because that's when they don't remember. So if you can make their first 3 years of their life as beautiful and as safe as possible, you've got a chance of growing up to be amazing adults. I find a lot of people who are really badly damaged by life, the damage has been done before their memories are formed. Because once you've got a memory, you can deal with the memory and you can heal from it, but you can't do it. So for everyone who's just really feeling lost right now, get involved with something. Get involved in a charity. Feed people. I mean, the World Food Program. Donate there. B1G1. Beautiful organisation that helps you to contribute so much. There's so many. Like every book I sell, I plant a tree through B1G1. Right. But get involved in something. No matter how bad you've got it, if you're sitting in a house with a roof over your head, with air conditioning or heating, depending on where you are in the world, a fridge for your food. 80% of the world don't have fridges, by the way, which is a good thing because that's a really bad thing for the environment if everyone had a fridge. But you think about that. So that people are living hand to mouth. That's the word. So, and get involved. Do something. Be part of something that's bigger than you. I am seeing suffering on such a big scale. Like I think people sitting in Singapore, you do not see what's going on. You don't. And it's, someone tagged me in a photo of this man who basically had given up on life, and he's one of the street people, and he's sitting there with his trolley of stuff, right? And I saw it on Facebook, and I tagged a bunch of people in Phuket, and I said, can we help this guy? And then a whole bunch of people went, and he'd just given up, People haven't had work for 18 months. When you get the opportunity to travel again, be super generous. Tip generously. Don't moan. Like, I can't stand people moaning. We've got the Phuket sandbox at the moment, right? People are flying in and they're moaning. I'm like, oh, God. They're moaning because the taxi driver charged them 100 baht more than they think. I'm like, this person has not earned an income for 18 months.
Right. And you're here on a holiday.
Yeah, exactly. If you can afford to be here on a holiday, you can afford to be here and be generous. The waitress, if she's still got her job, she's probably been sustaining at least 15 other people on that income, So we've got to be paying much more attention. We've got to be much more generous. Stop moaning, stop complaining, stop going on to TripAdvisor and criticizing, because it's so damaging. Any business that has survived this pandemic, especially in tourist destinations, man, you got to admire these people, because they're all my friends, right? The suffering has been immense. So be gracious. Don't criticize.
Andrea, I love what you said. Remember, right up
Right.
front, we talked about moments and choices, and how where we are right now is actually the sum total of our reaction or the choices, right, to all the moments. And I love what you said a minute ago, which was, don't miss this moment.
No.
Don't miss
No.
this moment to make the choice that we've been talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So
but I
don't
think
miss
that
this
if the-
moment.
yeah,
And
but if there's one thing I want,
yeah.
I really want the world to pay attention to, don't get lost to cynicism. Too many people are lost to cynicism, and it's such a bad place to be. You contribute nothing from a cynical point of view. The world is not perfect, but when you get lost down that track, you've got nothing good left to give.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. Don't get lost in
And
that.
my big takeaway from what Andrea said is really to be kind. I mean,
Okay.
just be kind.
Would that be your word of advice for those who can't see the light, Dr. Jerome?
Yeah, be kind.
Yeah.
Love.
Be kind. Be kind. Paul, your
My
word of advice?
my sentence would be to remember that we are all at our very best when we're giving. And I don't mean giving money, but just giving of ourselves. That's when we're at our best.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thank you.
It's been so inspiring, and that we all can, I think, never lose hope. That's one thing. And, the things that you're doing on the ground, and the causes that you've all been involved in. Thank you so much, Dr. Jerome, Paul, Andrea, wherever you are, continue to stay safe. Thank you, everyone, for watching Live the Stage with me, Frida on Gen TV. And this has been a Sustainability at Heart. Next week, we'll be speaking to a few other inspiring individuals. So until then, stay safe, everyone.